I've got two chapters to cover today. One is value management and the other is risk management. Value management can maybe slightly a new topic for you, although we have talked about value earlier, but this chapter specifically discusses this area. And risk is very similar to what we have studied in the project management. But anyways, in value management, we will be talking of these agenda items: overview, guiding principles, what is value management, components of value management, negotiating expected value, maximizing value, assuring value, realizing value, measuring value, and reporting value.
That's right.
Okay, value management. As you remember, we talked about value earlier, and value is about the money, is about the finances. Is the portfolio being useful or beneficial to the organization? So it ensures that investment in a portfolio delivers the required return as defined in the organizational strategy. You can associate this directly with the business value. Like you invest money in business, and in return, business gives you certain value. And this all is happening as per the organizational strategy. So, portfolio looks after the management of value as per the organizational strategy through projects and programs. This section, we will be discussing all these major topics as we have already said: negotiating expected value, maximizing, assuring, realizing, measuring, and reporting value. As far as guiding principles are concerned, as we have been discussing earlier, all the guiding principles of portfolio management do apply to value management, but following two principles are specifically important from the value point of view. First, ensure that investment portfolio components are aligned with the organizational strategy and governance practices. That means even before we add something to the portfolio, we have to ensure that the investment we are going to make in that specific initiative is actually aligned with the organizational strategy. Second guiding principle is balance the portfolio value against overall risk. So the value is like the benefit or advantage we are getting, but it is not always free of risks. If you have to make some benefit, make some advantage, take some advantage, there has to be risk involved. But the question is it worthwhile? The overall risk involved in a specific initiative, does that somehow balances with the portfolio value? The portfolio value should be more, the advantage from the portfolio should be more than the overall risks involved. So that is balancing the portfolio value against the overall risk. So the objective of value management is independent of the nature of the organization. So you see, we do understand and agree that whatever we do in the achievement of value management must be aligned with the strategic objectives. But if we, for the time being, forget about the value, still we could be, aligned with the organizational strategy without making any value. But having this value management adds the advantage coming from that specific component. Whether the organization is a private company or a government agency. Once we are defining the organizational value, objectives, then we must understand that these value objectives drive its strategy. You see, as I said before, you could have a strategy and you could be successfully running it even without making any value. But when we talk about value, we specifically ensure that we are aligned with the strategy. That specific value we are talking about is still aligned with the strategy. So that was my point. Value management is an added advantage to the organization. It drives its strategy. Then,
So just because
yes,
it's aligned with the strategic objectives doesn't make it valuable necessarily.
yes,
Right.
yes. Because if it is not valuable, right? We could have been aligned with the strategy without making any value.
Right.
But if you want to fulfill the goal of value management at the portfolio level, then it has to be aligned with the strategy.
Okay.
Impacting its governance practices and strategic management processes. And naturally, as we have talked about how it approaches the risk, because you remember we wanted to balance the portfolio with the risk. Okay, the next topic is specifically exploring what is value management. If you look at a definition of value, it offers a number of perspectives. Value could be um, calculated mathematically, there could be ethical values, economic values, and management values. However, they all revolve around the idea that whatever kind of value we are talking about, that is an indicator of the effect an entity or offering can deliver. So, what advantage this value can bring to the show? That effect can be seen in a number of ways, like maybe your revenues are increasing, your profits are increasing, your risks are reducing. All of these are indicators of value, right? So you have to have certain metrics available to measure what means value to you in your organization. But if you don't understand all this, then the simple definition is it is generally financial in nature. it is kind of an advantage to the organization. But generally, value is contextual in nature. It is, uh, it may be different for different people. Like I have already shown you, for some, um, value could be ethical value. No, if we are doing a good job, then we are delivering value, maybe to the society, right? But as I said, the advantage can be somehow associated with uh, the financial worth of something. The effects that an organization seeks to command are driven by the purpose of the organization and its role. So the context of value can classically be dependent or established by the purpose of the organization and how the world views the organization. And this worldview is reflected in its strategy. That is exactly what we were saying earlier. There could be value and there could be alignment with strategy. But the value that aligns with the strategy adds further, you know, advantage or further value to the whole system. That is value management. That is the relationship of value and the strategy. So the value of an entity or offering increases the more impactful it is. Like, more profitable it is, more revenue generating it is. So um, the value increases as the worth of the value is becoming more impactful, and naturally it becomes more relevant to the organization's strategy. An entity or offering is high in value where it has significant impact on an organization's environment. Now, this is interesting. The value of an entity, of a component, can be considered high when the impact of value is apparently visible in the environment of the organization. Like, you see, if you are rich, your way of living will say how rich you are, right? So the impact is shown all around you. So if you you are having your initiative which is high in value, it would be apparent the value coming to the organization through that initiative would have a visible impact which is relevant to organization's strategy. Not all forms of value are universally relevant. Again, for some, maybe money doesn't matter. For them, uh, humanitarian service could be of delivering humanitarian service could be of value to them. So, whatever the definition of value is for your organization may or may not be universally relevant. But again, because it is all depending upon the context, so the definition of value for you is according to your context. It is not some universal definition which we can be using. Now, just like for public sector, for government bodies, they may be more interested in reduced costs and increased citizen satisfaction rather than making a lot of profits. Their objective is not making profits. public sector bodies are more interested in becoming more efficient, reducing cost, serving their stakeholders. Therefore, value the measures that lead to that. So you have to understand what value means for this specific organization. On the other hand, a private sector organization may be measuring the value in a different way. For them, increased revenue, margins, profits, all of these could be of value. And for a non-government organization, those measures could be which best enhance outputs related to their mission. So directly associated with their mission, they may be giving more value to that, because again, non-government bodies, though they are not government bodies, but they also have similar objectives to that of public sector bodies. They are basically for the betterment of humanitarian grounds, for the service of the people. But
What
private sector
is
bodies are
what is the
way.
difference between the non-government and the private sector?
Private sector are there to make money, right? If there is a business,
Right.
there's a factory or anything which is there to make revenues. Non-government bodies, they are not there to make revenues. They are not looking at the profits or
Oh, it's
revenues.
like a non-profit organization. That's what
It
that
is
is.
like a non-profit organization.
I got it.
Rather,
I
I would say
understand.
it is
Yeah, they're
more
pushing a specific narrative. I don't say
exact.
narrative, but I got it. Okay. Yep.
Now, looking at the significance of value management can be undermined by certain redundancy. For example, in this case, in a non-government organization or something, when an aid program is shipping food into a disaster area, so what do you think? Uh, um, are they making profits out of it? Not at all. The biggest value for them is the delivery of the food. The amount of food they deliver to that starving people, that much food which is delivered to them is the value delivered. Perhaps measured in terms of number of survivors who did not experience starvation over a period of time. If we could not provide this service to those people, they could have starved. So the people you saved from starvation is how the value is measured in this specific case. This is a specific example for a non-government body. If food is shipped in faster than it can be distributed, and the excess will perish before it can be consumed, then the excess stock has no value. If you could not distribute the food which is left behind, which you have to take back, no matter how fast you moved it to the destination, until and unless it could save people from starvation, no matter how much food has reached the destination, that is absolutely of no value at all. So, this is a very good example to understand uh, that an item which is of value for a government body may not be of value for a business, and an item which is of value to the business may not be of value to a non-government body. So all have different objectives, all have different definition of the value. Now, as I said, value is contextual, but then we need to understand and recognize the value. So first, we must know what is of value to us, what constitutes value for our organization, and we must select and devise certain measures or metrics as if we can measure the specific value we are talking about. Now, this measurement should be in some kind of defined units, like in case of food, how many people have been served the food could be the value generation. If you have you are able to distribute the food to 2 million people, then this figure of 2 million, which is saved from starvation, is of value. On the other hand, another organization might be counting it in amount of money they have made in profit. So defined units of measurement and methods of making the measurements should exist and be relevant to the organization and the effects to be commanded. Metrics related to value may attach to tangible and intangible outputs. Now, this is again interesting because we do talk about tangible and intangible in whenever we talk about the financial matters. So, even if the value is financial in nature or even not, both ways, we must understand when we'll measure it, we'll find that there are effects of tangibles and intangibles in it. Can you tell me what is the difference between tangible and intangible outputs to the value?
I mean, tangible would be financial, maybe some kind of deliverable also for building or construction. The intangible would be reputation or, um, yeah, something like reputation or compliance, something like that.
Right. So tangibles are those which are uh, which are easily accountable, which contribute directly and visibly to the value of the organization. And intangibles are those which may have to be indirectly translated. Like you said, we were supposed to make money, and as much money we make, it, if whatever the value has been generated, it, can it be directly counted to the advantage can be counted in a tangible term that we have had this much amount of advantage physically. It could be in shape of a profit or whatever. On the other hand, as you said, intangible is indirect benefit, which may directly, it will be difficult to count it in terms of money. Maybe if you are doing something and you get some satisfaction out of it, or you get some experience out of it, which is not directly money to you, that would be intangible. But practically speaking, those intangibles also uh, can be somehow converted into value. You can ascertain a value. For example, you were working on a project and you acquired certain knowledge while you were making money. You also acquired certain knowledge by doing that project, and that knowledge is uh, irreplaceable. If you would have, you know, developed those skills by some other means, it would have costed money to acquire that much knowledge. So you can somehow convert intangible into tangible. This advantage you have got free of cost is worth maybe $5,000 in the open market. So basically, this intangible benefit, this experience you have attained, maybe worth $5,000. So I am trying to convert intangibles into tangible terms. But without bringing these, comparisons, this is not easy for me to convert this advantage to that. So, for example, you hit someone on the road and that person dies, you pay a compensation to those people. Is it replaceable? Is that compensation, no matter how much you pay as compensation, but is that man can that man can that man be replaced by the compensation? Absolutely no. But we have assigned a value to that, and this is a kind of an intangible. So I have made a payment for an intangible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tangibles, as you described, could be naturally depending on how you look at value. What is value for your organization? But whatever the value is, if it can be directly attainable, like uh, skills uplift, resource capacity, market share, and client satisfaction. These are direct indicators of fulfillment of value. These are tangibles. Economic value is also considered a tangible and is normally for project, for organization, economic value is considered really very important. So, but I would consider it as a tangible. Improvement in economic value, how can that be realized? It can be through improved productivity or increased volume of activity, right? So generally, when you are considering value management, there must be some economic value you should be able to recognize easily, and attainment of that is also tangible. Whereas intangibles, as I said, they're indirect. They cannot be directly translated into worth or value. Proxy measures will be possible. Like, I put a value to the life of a man. That is a proxy measure. That is not a tangible measure. No matter how much I pay, I cannot replace that human being. So intangible values, of course, they will give us a fairly good idea of the value coming to us. For example, brand awareness, organization's reputation, risk exposure, compliance, and societal values. All of these are examples of intangible value. Now, naturally, we'll talk more about what to do with this value, but generally, in short, let's talk about measurement because we have already started talking about the tangibles and intangibles, and actually, we were talking about the metrics, how to measure, right? So that measurement could be tangible or intangible. So measurement of value is not necessarily straightforward. Naturally, depending on your perception of value according to the strategy of your organization, particularly given that organizations operate in environments that they cannot control and typically pursue multiple strategies to the same end. Uncertainty, the level of uncertainty, no matter how well you plan things, but to counter the uncertainty, you may have to pursue multiple strategies. So the things are not straightforward when we are measuring the value, but we will have to be, you know, uh, living in a very complex environment, especially when we are talking about the whole big organization. We are not talking about the value coming from a specific company. We are talking about the overall value being generated for the organization. Though the value of a quoted organization based on its market capitalization may be directly and transparently measured. That could be, this could be what? Value of a quoted organization. That could be the capital or economic value of that organization. That is tangible. Measuring the value based on consumer perception of the brand will likely require an indirect approach, like it is intangible. You ask your consumer or customer, how do they feel about this brand? And if they love this brand, and naturally, if they love this brand, they will buy it more. Ultimately, it will result in a tangible value, but this is a indirect or intangible value. You cannot say that people like the brand on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe they like it 8. So that could be an indicator that this high likeness of brand may result in more value, but this is not a result by itself. When the physical advantage will come to you, the value will be delivered. Only then you will measure the things which are directly or tangibly accountable. Example could be a hotel chain. For example, a hotel chain may use a loyalty program to drive profit, but may have other programs with the same aim and may choose to try to isolate measurement of the impact of the loyalty program by measuring things such as membership count, net promoter score for members, and the profit per member. You see, the strategy which this loyalty program has adopted, there could be many other strategies uh, in place in the organization for the same attainment of the same objective. But you want to measure the value of this specific loyalty program. So for that, we have to have isolate the measurements, which could only represent the value being generated from this loyalty program. Similarly, a food aid program, which we just talked about in the previous example, in a disaster area, seeks to preserve life. But there may be other threats to life besides starvation, including disease and armed conflict. That is very true. If there is a war-trodden area, people are dying of starvation and disease, and there is armed conflict going on around them, then food aid is not the only savior. The people might need medicine, they might need weapons to protect themselves. So, starvation is just one of the goals. And your food aid program is only targeting starvation, but that doesn't mean that will save everyone from death and disease. Aid agency may seek a more nuanced measurement beyond numbers surviving versus original population count. So they need to know this in this specific situation, they have to somehow isolate the deaths being caused by the disease or the armed conflict, and they should only be targeting those deaths from the starvation. Perhaps focusing on the number of people being treated for malnutrition or other afflictions. So why I'm giving you these examples in such a detail uh, is because we said value is contextual. It is difficult to ascertain value because value for different initiative could be very different. So in these examples, we have clearly seen that whatever the value is from a specific initiative, the metrics have to be designed for that specific value generation. So we talked about the definition of the value. We said value is contextual. We talked about the significance and redundancy of value, measurement of value, intangibility of value, and also some challenges. Where is it? I'm sorry, I just lost it. Challenges in measuring value. Next comes the components of value management. There are a number of key activities required for effective portfolio value management. In the context of the links between the portfolio's effect on the environment, organization's purpose, and development of strategy. You see, value for your organization may not only be talking about organization purpose. Yes, of course, the purpose of the organization or the development of certain strategies may contribute towards the value, but what will be the impact of your initiatives on the environment, right? That could be an intangible. So count everything in, leading to the creation of a portfolio or its reshaping. And if you want to manage the value effectively, what you need to do, portfolio manager should be able to, first of all, negotiate the expected value, then maximize the returns or value, then realize those values, and then be able to measure the performance and ultimately report how much value has been generated. So these are a little bit details about each one of these topics, like negotiate expected value. That means we are trying to negotiate it against two levels. First is against the aims of the organizational strategy, which we already talked about. And secondly, within the portfolio, where each of its candidate components is assessed against the value framework. Because the overall value coming from the portfolio to the organization is actually a sum of all the values being generated from the components of the portfolio. That is why we were orchestrating this portfolio in such a manner as if it can maximize the value. How can it maximize the value? It could be primarily due to the candidate components which are contributing that value to the portfolio, which portfolio is aligning with the organizational strategy. Second point is maximize returns. Although we will talk a lot in detail about each one of these things later on because they are discussed in much more detail, but I'm just kind of introducing you to these concepts. Maximize the return from the investment in the portfolio. Plan and enact an approach to deliver each component the lowest safe economic cost without negative impact. So when you are choosing the components of the portfolio, you should be mindful of the fact that the investments you put into that initiative are lowest safe, and they should be promising maximum revenues or maximum value generated, whatever the definition of value is from your organizational perspective, maximum value at the minimum cost. This is also, I can also call it uh, efficiency and effectiveness of your portfolio. This includes modeling and evaluating various approaches to satisfying the aims of the portfolio as per the strategy, using techniques such as portfolio efficient frontier and other applicable risk management tools and techniques. They would actually make, you know, use of these tools and techniques will actually maximize your return. They will help to make you more effective. Realized value ensure that the value required to be realized by the investment in the portfolio is achieved. That is what we promised, and that is what we are going to achieve. The key here is recognizing that environment into which the component will deliver its output is actively conditioned to exploit those outputs. This is a very important point. The most suitable environment in which the benefits should be realized, we must protect that environment. We must create that environment as if the worth of the advantage coming out of value is pronounced. So we have to uh, make specific effort to make the particular environment ready to, for the exploitation. Measure the performance. Once you think you have realized the value, then you have to measure it to see how much value actually has been generated. Naturally, this all depends upon from organization to organization what they treat as a value and how do they want to measure it. As I have mentioned earlier, measurement is about the metrics. The portfolio manager should gather the agreed upon metrics. Last but not the least is reporting the value. Naturally, you have measured it, you have realized it, you have done all the previous steps, and now you have to compile a report on the value achievement based on those metrics you use to measure. This is a political act in that the value achieved consists of a narrative related achievement. What was our narrative? What we were supposed to be achieving? So basically, we are trying to achieve that. We want to show that explicitly in our report that the value which we promised, we have delivered. In light of, naturally, we will consider the applicable risks, impact of shifts in the environment, and possible changes in an organization. So this should be part of the report on value generated. To achieve effective portfolio value management, portfolio manager needs to create a model. Now we are talking about modeling for portfolio. Even before we can start making, uh, you know, uh, profits or start delivering value, we must very carefully design a model for that, which will tell us, which will help us in planning for the portfolio requirements, influencing the factors which will bring value to the portfolio, and the tolerances from the point of view of how much we can take, right? Like the risk tolerance. That will drive portfolio components toward realization of the value target. That is exactly what we said. Negotiate expected value, maximize return, realize value, measure performance, and report. So basically, realization is what we want. Now I have a figure for you which somehow depicts all the key activities in a portfolio. This links between the portfolio's effect on the environment. Naturally, I have just mentioned to you, it is not about the money alone. It's not about the strategy alone, but the development of strategy could be a leading cause in developing in your value management. It could be a component of that. But you see, organization's purpose, their direction, and the environment in which you are working, right? If like we have nowadays, every project and every initiative we undertake, it is environmentally affected. You have to show your carbon footprint, right? So these are environmental things, and every project has to go through that. So it is not only about the organization purpose or strategy, but it is also involvement of environmental. So what do you see here? We see in this big box, we have got negotiating the expected value, maximizing the returns, and realizing the value. And we are doing that from the managed portfolio, which is a collection of all the components within the portfolio. So this is the orchestration at the portfolio level happening with its component, which is ensuring that the value desired will be fulfilled. So we assure that value from the managed portfolio, and not only that, we safeguard that value. Right? You have kind of earned something with hard work. You are definitely going to secure it and safeguard it and deliver it to the organization. We don't want to waste it. So how these things happening from when we are developing strategy? Strategy is definitely giving us our strategic objectives. The dotted line is linking the managed portfolio with their respective strategic objectives. And we need two more things. One is portfolio expected value, which would be useful while we are trying to assure value, measure value, and things like that. When we are assuring value, the expected value of portfolio may be instrumental in the measurement. In the comparison, how much value has been generated and how much value had to be generated, right? But you see, expected value, portfolio expected value measurement is not, uh, maybe it is of more important than the measures of individual value. The collective value of the whole portfolio, which is directly contributing to the strategy of the organization, that is more important to us. The portfolio expected value as compared to the measures of value. So you can see here it says first is the one that negotiates the expected portfolio value given the required value resulting from strategy development. So this is it, portfolio expected value while we are assuring the value. The second feedback loop acts more slowly, taking measurements of performance and achieved value, that is at the component level. We are measuring each and everything at a component level. It is a slow and laborious process, but this is where the fruit is actually yielding from here. This second feedback loop is the more impactful of the two.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that slide?
Yes. You see, portfolio expected value is what we expected of the portfolio, and we are just trying to show it, like just like the earned value calculation. How much have we achieved and how much have we planned, right? That is a big picture, right? This is your first feedback loop, and based on this feedback, we can have a conclusion that things are going right or they are not going right. Like the portfolio expected value, whatever we compute here, is sent back to the strategy as if it can revise its strategy if needed.
Yeah. Okay.
Here, yes.
Yeah, I understand better now.
Whereas measure of value is of much more detail because it is about each and every component within the portfolio. So this is a very laborious process. Each and every, you're dealing with with all the components at an individual level, and then you are accumulating their results, their value, and that would be the generated value. Now, whatever is the generated value, you are just seeing, is it what the expected value was? You you compare the expected value with the generated value, and naturally you could have met the target, you could have exceeded the target, or you may not have even met it. Then is negotiating value. Portfolio manager negotiates the expected value to be achieved by the portfolio against the required value. I think that is uh, amply clear by the diagram which we're seeing. This is portfolio expected value we are talking about. So that is a comparison. In order to ensure that the immediate goals developed by the strategy do not place the organization at risk of significant underachievement. We do not want the first feedback loop is useful to us as if we can renegotiate or negotiate the value, go back to the strategy and see that we are unable to achieve the strategic goal, the value goals. And maybe we can ask the strategy to review and revise the value. Like the targets we set for the value may have to be revised in towards the positive or negative side. As part of this negotiation, the portfolio manager removes redundant value and aligns expectations and risk appetite. You see, this you will only know when the things will happen to you, when the risks actually the cumulative effect of those risks come to the portfolio manager. Portfolio manager has to find way out. If it is the portfolio manager is unable to achieve the expected goals for the value, then we have to see where we are losing. So redundant values have to be removed. Negotiation requires portfolio manager to act as a bridge between the component owners and the strategy function. And that is where the negotiation is happening. Strategy is also informed by strategic investment choice. Investment choice relates to the alignment of the portfolio. The analysis focuses on the new and changing strategic objectives and goals. So that analysis also uh, helps us in you know course correction or identification of gaps in our investment. Gaps may pose a risk to the portfolio. If the gaps keep widening, you will never be able to achieve the desired value. So we have to renegotiate. We have to negotiate the value expectations with the strategy. So how do we assess that? We look at the trade-off analysis. We have market payoff variability, which focuses on the pricing and sales forecast and depends on a number of marketing factors. Budget variability, it determines the effect of changing the portfolio. Like we said earlier, when we were talking about the components of the portfolio, we can kill a component, we can create a new component. That is just to balance the portfolio and also to ensure that we are able to generate value. Maybe a specific component is no more able to generate value for us the way we expect. So therefore, it might be necessary for us to close down this redundant component and maybe put our money into something more profitable. Performance variability, it analyzes the performance of the portfolio, how that performance is varying over time. Market requirement is also changing, so you analyze that. Time to market, that determines the effects of portfolio velocity. How soon can you get your product in the market? As soon as your goods are available in the market, you are going to achieve the value earlier. So in negotiating value, we have three main concepts: value management framework, evidence-based value statement, and efficient frontier. We had already mentioned the efficient frontier, which is a modeling approach or tool that gives decision makers the analytical tool to optimize portfolios given resource constraints. So considering all the constraints, it helps portfolio to optimize to a level of efficiency. And this modeling tool tells where we are, this is the maximum efficiency. We could have achieved anything beyond that may not be possible. So in that case, we'll get back on the negotiation table with our components and strategies. So these three things are helping us in negotiating value. Okay, we talked about negotiating value. I think before I can start maximizing value, should we not have a little break here?
Sure.
Maybe about 15 minutes?
Yeah, we can do that.
Fine.
All right. Thanks.
So we will have a break